Hey, what's going on, DDO players? Axel here. And as I talked about in my last video, when I went through the two-handed fighting changes, there are a crap ton of changes in Update 45. A lot of balance work, some new content, but a lot of balance work. And this is the biggest one for sure, which we'll talk about in this video, which is the range combat changes. So let's just go through this. And most of these changes are pointed at Inquisitive, which in the opinion of both players and developers, is overpowered and has been for a while. I personally can't really say from personal experience because I've never played Inquisitive, but the players have been very vocal about Inquisitive being overpowered for a long time. So in the opinion of both the players and the developers, now the developers have come out and just been like, yeah, it's not balanced. For a while, the developers were kind of holding that back, and they really said at some points, I know there's some developer quotes that some players have pulled that said that they're not seeing it, and then they've kind of changed their tune lately. Now, the more cynical players are going to say, oh, well, they're nerfing it because they have a new class coming out and they want the new class to be the new, strong thing to sell. Whereas I think the more reasonable approach is probably that they initially got too ambitious with their design goals and they wanted to wait till they got more information to do balance changes. So whichever one you want to believe, you can pick, go for it. But anyways, it doesn't really matter at this point because these changes are going to happen. And as I said in my last video, these are preview Lamania changes. So that means that they are not final and they are prone to being changed. Although usually they aren't changed significantly before they get live. Normally it's either they go to live as presented or they have some small tweaks. But they could change it by a lot, like rapidly. Just have to kind of put that disclaimer out there that this could change by a lot. But anyways, let's just go ahead and read through Kokomajobo, a developer, his post here on the Lamania forums. As we approach each hardcore season, one of our goals is to make changes that change how you build and play characters. We want to shake up builds and strategies, and it makes sense to align these game-wide changes with the release of new seasons of the Hardcore League. Season 2 is coming very soon, so U45 contains a lot of the balance changes for the season. Some of this process involves identifying underperforming builds and making changes to boost them. Knights of the Chalice and two-handed fighting changes are a big part of this in this season. However, this process also involves identifying overperforming builds and archetypes and making adjustments as well. Okay, so first thing, this wording here is something that a lot of players on the forums have been kind of jumping down their throats on, and I think that's unwarranted. A lot of players read this, and especially this first sentence here, and they read this as saying that, oh, they're changing stuff around hardcore, like they're balancing the game around hardcore. Now, Severlin has, the executive producer, has come out with a separate statement on the Lamania forum saying that no, this isn't the case. We are making these balance changes for the game as a whole. We're not balancing around hardcore. So that has been kind of addressed, but wanted to just throw that out there. Okay, continuing now. In approaching these range changes, especially with regards to Inquisitive, we looked at it from a number of progressively larger questions. Is Inquisitive balanced where it needs to be overall? And they said no. In evaluating play data, it's become clear that it's too strong. We iterated on a number of different potential changes over the last few months and ended up making changes that reduce its power from a number of angles. Some of these changes address some of the below questions as well. Inquisitive will still be very viable, but it likely won't be the top DPS in the game anymore. Okay, now on to other crossbow styles. Are the crossbow styles great repeater duel balanced where they need to be relative to crossbow styles? No, Inquisitive is much stronger than the others, and great crossbow is a little higher than it needs to be. Are crossbows balanced where they need to be relative to the other range combat styles? Looking at the context of crossbows versus bows, it became clear that repeaters are close to where they need to be, but great and duel are significantly too high. Is range combat balanced to where it needs to be? Looking in the context of range versus melee combat, there are significant issues with range easy access to AoE and current lack of incentive to focus on single targets. And you'll see that is a trend with these changes. What they've done a lot is taken some of the incentive from targeting multiple targets and put more incentive on targeting single targets. Okay, this last one led to the changes to Archer's focus and improved precise shot. as well as the presence of a few melee-centric changes, such as Knights of the Chalice, lead the charge enhancement, and updated spring attack that let melees get into attacking range faster. And we'll talk about the spring attack and all that stuff in a separate video. Okay, so then they continue. Let's see. I don't think I need to read a lot of this, but let's get into. Okay, let's get into the kind of core changes here. But they wanted to preface that saying that about bows section, they said we recognize that some of the overall changes in this update reduce the amount of AoE damage that bows can produce. However, between Archer's Focus and updated Deepward Stalker, there is some boost in this update as well. We recognize this is not an overall solution to bows as a combat style, having few options to help them become competitive DPS builds. We've got plans for that soon. So basically that means that, okay guys, we're trying to nerf Inquisitive here. We know that by proxy, when we nerf Inquisitive, it's going to also hurt some builds like bow builds that aren't necessarily like overpowered in the game right now. And they're saying, sorry, our intention is not really to hurt them. It's to hit Inquisitive, but as a result, we know we are hitting bows as well and other non-overpowered range combat styles. And as you'll see here, they've made some changes to try to offset that, and they've said here that they're going to continue to let's see here. Yeah, and they said here that we have a few options to help them, and they've got other plans coming up soon. So my assumption from reading this is that they're looking at balancing that out later. So if your character, like bow character or whatever, is hit more than you'd like, just be aware that they're not really aiming, from the impression I get, to hurt those builds, but they can't really help it because when they hit Inquisitive, they can't really help it with some of the changes to hit those as well, but they're going to try to buff those later. All right. So the big ones, the big changes here that really are not just affecting Inquisitive, but all range builds. Improved Precise Shot now reduces range damage by 20% while active. So that is the feat that lets your projectile go through an enemy and hit another enemy, essentially. So now when you use that, it's going to reduce your range damage by 20%. So yeah, that's a nerf. People aren't going to like that. I saw a lot of people complaining about that. It's a pretty solid nerf. So again, this goes along with the theme of them wanting to focus on really taking more of a focus towards having you target single targets with range as opposed to many targets, because as they said earlier in this post, they want that to be more of the more of the role of like two-handed fighting and stuff like that. So that's the thing that's going to happen. Archer's Focus has been redesigned. Offensive range stance. This stance grants power to those who focus their attacks on a single target. Once per second, attacking a foe with a ranged weapon will grant you a stack of Archer's Focus. And it's +3 combinance bonus to range power for 6 seconds. That can stack up to 15 times attacking the same target. So more incentive there to attack the same target. So that's a significant change. Rapid Reload now increases the reload speed of great crossbows, dual light crossbows, and dual light crossbows by less than before. So that's a nerf for Inquisitive. And great crossbow, dual light, the dual users, which is Inquisitive. So that's a nerf for them to make them shoot slower. Endless Palisade and No Holds Barred now require a crossbow to be equipped. That's the Artificer enhancement, I believe. Endless Palisade and No Holds Barred now play a reload animation activation before the effect starts. I don't know how big of a deal that'll be. When they say crossbow, I mean, I know Artificers mainly use repeaters. I'm not sure if that means both. It just says crossbow, so I'm assuming that means like repeaters as well, because that would be kind of silly, right? To not make it so you can't, the Artificer enhancement can't use a great crossbow to get that effect. So I'm assuming that means all. Okay, new feats. Now these are buffs here. Simple Thrown Weapons Expertise. These are brand new feats. You are skilled with the use of simple thrown weapons, and while using one, you gain double shot equal to your dexterity. So that's going to give a buff to those like throwing builds. Multitude of Missiles, another new feat, requires point blank shot and +6 base attack bonus for the next 20 seconds when wielding a simple thrown weapon. You add 120 to your double shot and 4 times your base attack bonus to range power. So cool new feats there for like thrower builds. So that's neat. Okay, some changes to Ranger. Deepwood Stalker's heavy draw no longer reduces attack by 5 when toggled on, and now also grants a +1 competence bonus to critical multiplier on longbows and shortbows while toggled on. So that's a buff. Probably something to help compensate Rangers for being hit by some of the Inquisitive buffs. Ranger Deepwood Stalker's strikes like lightning now also adds 10% range alacrity with longbows and shortbows when you do not have improved precise shot enabled. So another buff for Ranger. Okay, Inquisitive. Now here are the major Inquisitive nerfs. Inquisitive. Dual crossbow combat style now only uses 66% of your double shot. So I believe, now someone please correct me if I'm wrong. I try to get everything right on the channel, but it's hard to know every single thing. But I believe that that was 100%, just 100% before this. So basically, if you're Inquisitive now with dual crossbow combat style, you're only going to benefit from 2 out of every 3 of your double shot points, basically. So your double shot's going to be cut in 2/3. Inquisitive Law Dice now scale with 150% ranged power was 200%. Improved Law and Greater Law in Inquisitive now grant +1 Law die instead of 2. So those are direct nerfs to their damage. Okay. So these are the main, I don't think there's any other changes. Yeah. So these are the main changes, guys. So let me know what you think about these. I mean, overall, Inquisitive, again, I haven't played it, but in the opinion of players for a long time, in the opinion of the developers now, it's been overpowered. It seems like that's been the case. I mean, everyone has been complaining about Inquisitive since Sharn came out. So I think it's fine. I mean, obviously, it seems like the overwhelming consensus is that a significant nerf to Inquisitive is needed. So I'm totally fine with that. I mean, you want the game to be balanced. It sucks for your build to get nerfed, but it's unfortunately just a necessary evil because they just cannot balance the game by buffing alone. You know, you have to do nerfs. It's much easier to nerf one outperforming build than it is to buff every other build in the game. It also, the problem with buffing other builds, obviously, is that like buffing everyone else instead of doing nerfs, is that you basically power level people in content, so that content in the game as a whole becomes less challenging than it should be if you buff everybody as opposed to nerfing one. So guys, again, let me know what you think. Most of these seem reasonable, although I'm pretty sure some of the bow users are not going to be happy about some of these changes. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it for this video. There will be more videos I decide to do because I've gotten really interested in, I've read the forums a lot today and a lot of this Lamania stuff, so it's been interesting the more I've read. So I'm going to do a couple more videos on most of the rest of the changes. I don't know if I'll do a video on Knights of the Chalice or not, but at least for the rest of the changes, I'm planning to do a video. And hopefully when Lamania comes back up, I can do something with Alchemist if I can. I tried to go on Lamania Wednesday, I think it was the 16th, and they had already shut it off before I get to it. So, but anyways, there'll be a couple more videos from me after this one. So hope you enjoyed this one. Post your thoughts below on ranged combat. That's going to be it for this video. Have a good one. I'll see you next time. Take care.